Chase McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. McFord on the way, knuckleball. He got it!
How is everybody doing today? I am Colin Bashnigo here, your host, Basher CFB show on TikTok. I've had some pretty successful TikToks lately. Hopefully we can keep that up. And of course, I cannot be accused of making my name known because of one Rico Knows, even though I was making videos that were more popular than the ones regarding him before I even knew he existed. But that's drama for over there. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe. We have week one predictions here for just Thursday and Friday because I'm going to break down the biggest games to talk about. And considering that college football is kind of back here Thursday and Friday, this is going to be awesome to see. And I think everybody specifically tomorrow night are going to be watching the college football that's on display, Utah, Florida, Nebraska, Minnesota, to be specific. So we are going to get into that week one preview. But like I said, comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of our predictions here. Really, my predictions. This all has to do with my predictions here. But my word is not sacred. I'm not perfect. I am likely not going to get these 100% accurate, but I'll do my best. These are just my opinions. And at the end of the day, I want you guys to discuss your opinions down below, what you disagree with, and let's see which one of us is right if you do disagree, instead of just trying to say you're wrong, screw you kind of thing. We don't do that around here. All right. First game I'm going to talk about, NC State on the road at UConn. A lot of people are going to be talking about this upset. The spread here is 14.5 with an over-under of 47. I did see the spread went down to 14 on most sports books, but I got it at 14.5 earlier when I did it yesterday, when I made these thumbnails yesterday. So keep in mind, some of these spreads are off. This is before the Cam Rising news. We'll talk about that. Of course, the title, the thumbnail tells you everything you need to know about that, but we'll talk about that game as we go along. Now, UConn's tough defense led by Jackson Mitchell. Jackson Mitchell, a little 5'8". I'm pretty sure he's 5'8", little ball of, clay that was just molded as a perfectly God-given talent type of player who just absolutely explodes and pops off the page. I think he had close to, if not over 110 tackles total last year as a middle linebacker. But the last time we saw this UConn team, their offense got nothing going. And they're going to have a new starter here. His name is going to be Joseph Fagnano, and he's a redshirt senior, been in the program for a while for Jim Mora. I'm going to be very curious to see how this team works. Devontae Houston is going to be a guy that needs to step up and be able to have a big game for UConn to have a chance, move the ball offensively. But with that tough defense, they're going to be going up against an NC State defense or offense rather, that is going to be rather interesting. Now, what makes them interesting? Well, first off, Brennan Armstrong transferring in from Virginia. Now, a lot of people look at last year and they're like, he was horrible. But if you take a look 2 years ago, Brennan Armstrong was really good. And guess what? His offensive coordinator 2 years ago was their current offensive coordinator that they just hired, Robert Anae. And Robert Anae has a great track record from what I could tell. First off, Syracuse had a nice surge where Garrett Schrader was able to have a really, really good season, a solid season with Sean Tucker at running back or Rondé Gadsden having big plays and stuff like that. That offense looked pretty solid at Syracuse in just his 1 year at Syracuse last year. Going back, he was in Bronco Mendenhall's staff at Virginia. Now, of course, last year, Tony Elliott, first year, it's pretty disastrous for Brennan Armstrong. Robert Anae was not there, though, right? He left when Bronco Mendenhall left. But under Bronco Mendenhall, they really got some things really clicking. You could go back to 2019 with Olamide Zaccheaus, and they had Bryce Perkins there, and they were really, really good. And then they were a pretty solid offense back in 2021. And just because they fell off like that and that whole tragedy happened, we kind of forget how good Virginia was really becoming a solid program with great offense. And that was kind of the mind of Robert Anae, and it goes back to his connections with Bronco Mendenhall back when they were at BYU together. Robert Anae, I think, could potentially take this offense and skyrocket them. Now, players to watch for on this offense, you have Keon Lesane, Brad Rosner, the transfer from Rice that's playing in his like 7-year play. I mean, he has done an amazing job at Rice, and now he's got a chance to level up. And then, of course, Julian Gray as well. Those are 3 receivers that I'm going to be watching for. Overall, though, like I think this offense could potentially level up. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure if I'm going to take the over-under, but I do think NC State, now that the lines kind of come right at 14, this might be something I place right before kickoff, or at the very least try to bring down. And we're going to talk about this game a little bit more. I really like NC State in this game for that sure fact. I think a lot of people are underrating the fact, first off, their defense is going to be pretty solid. I mean, you look at guys like Peyton Wilson coming back, cornerback Aiden White coming back, both 2 of the top players in their position. They, of course, lose Drake Thomas, which was probably the best player on their entire football team last year. But with that being said, this NC State defense, I think, under Dave Doran is still going to be really physical and really good. With that added ability of Robert Anae as an offensive coordinator, an underrated offseason hire, I think NC State might just cover the 14 and a half, let alone the 14 that it's currently at. So I'm taking NC State, even though it's a road game. They've had this time to prepare for UConn, and UConn, last time we saw them, they did struggle. That defense for UConn is very tough, but I do think Robert Anae is going to have this squad rolling. All right, next game we got up on the board is Florida on the road at Utah. Now, this is massive here. Cam Rising out with his injury, of course, prolonged from when he got hurt in the Rose Bowl. I think he tore his ACL, if I remember correctly. And they are going to go with Bryson Barnes, who came in relief. Did not look great in relief against Penn State. However, Penn State's defense is not Florida's defense. Florida's defense is significantly less of a factor. And guess what? Florida has Mertz coming in, Graham Mertz, who has struggled at the Power 5 level the last couple of years. He had that flash in the pan as a freshman, and he was really good in that COVID season for a game or two. And then what ended up happening after that was he started to really struggle. There was a balance there at Wisconsin on whether or not he was really going to be the guy. He had kind of pushed out Jack Cohn as a freshman, so there was not a whole lot of depth behind him, and it was just a bad marriage from the beginning. Now, does Florida have the ability to get the most out of his talent? I'm not sure. I got to wait to see this game, but I definitely know one thing for sure. With the return of Jaquindon Jackson and more in the run game for Utah, and then the return of Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, plus offensive linemen trying to be a little bit more physical, you can expect a heavy dose of the run on both sides. I knew Florida would be a run-heavy team, but with the addition of Micah Pittman, with bringing back Vele, Devon, or I think it's Davon. Is it Davon? It might be Devon Vele, the speedy number 17, plus the 2 tight ends, Yasmin, and a lot of people forget that Brent Keithy's back because Dalton Kincaid stole the shine when Keithy got hurt last year. Watch out for Utah when they get a quarterback back as far as offense being able to explode. I do like Florida's defense better, though. I'm not a huge fan of Utah's defense. Their secondary is replacing a lot, right? And specifically a lot in Clark Phillips out of the secondary that was not great already last year. I mean, this was a secondary who was in the 50s or 60s when it comes to, I can't remember the exact stat, but when it comes to pass yards per attempt allowed. This is going to be a dangerous game for Utah. And if Billy Napier is a coach that can really game plan very well and set up his team for success on game days, he's clearly being able to recruit at a high level. I never worried about him being able to recruit at Florida. The question to me was always going to be, can he get a Power 5 team up and ready? This is going to be massive. Week 1, you're in the mountains, so you have something against you. So you have some set of adversity, but you've had so much time to prepare for Utah. You prepared for a better version of Utah than you're going to get, specifically on the defensive side. Can you pull off the upset? Right now, I'm leaning Florida upset. I'm going chomp with the Gators. I am not wanting to at all place any money on this game. Over, under, doesn't matter. Spread, doesn't matter. I wouldn't place any money on this game. I would just sit back, enjoy it, and maybe make a pick. That is all I would do. So I'm going to take Florida with no strings attached because I have no idea what to expect in this game, and sometimes those are just the best games you could possibly get. Nebraska on the road at Minnesota. Conference opener for Matt Rhule in this Nebraska team. But you guys know this for a fact, right? That Nebraska, the last 2 years, have lost the most one-score games out of anybody in the country. We, of course, remember the 9-loss season where they lost by 9 or less, all single-digit losses, including against Ohio State, who was a Rose Bowl team, a New Year's Six team, and Michigan, who made the playoff that year. both of those one-score games. They lost all one-score games for the most part. Sorry, single-digit games. They lost mostly one-score games that season in their 3-9 year. They also lost a lot of one-score games last year. You get a lot of optimism with how Mickey Joseph was able to sustain a tough culture and be able to rally back and beat a better Iowa team at the end of the day. Though their offense struggled, a better Iowa team, and it wasn't really all that close. And by the way, that was in Kinnick Stadium. I love this Nebraska team in this spot. Now, you do have Alan Kaliakmanis. I think I said that right. He is starting for them at quarterback for Minnesota. Of course, Tanner Morgan went down last year, and Kaliakmanis had come in, and he's got a couple of weapons, right? You have Daniel Jackson. You have Chris Ottman-Bell back. You have Bryce Spanford. Bryson Spanford? Spanford. I don't know why I'm blinking on that, but Spanford is back at tight end, and they bring in Sean Tyler, a really good player from the G5. He came in from Western Michigan, was a really good running back, one of the better G5 running backs last year, and he's going to come in to help be that guy to fill the shoes that have been left, the big shoes, that is, of Mohamed Ibrahim. So I'm going to be very curious to see how this offense works, but I know this defense is going to be very, very tough. I also know they're definitely replacing a little bit on their offensive line. I do think it's going to take some time for Minnesota, and the fact that they are currently 7-point favorites is a little bit stunning to me. I am going to go with Nebraska to win this game outright and pull off the second upset, by the way, of the night, with, of course, Florida and Utah being the other one in a little bit of a different fashion. I think Vegas is not really accounting for how good of a player Jeff Sims could potentially be and how good of weapons that Nebraska could potentially have for Jeff Sims. Plus, they're still going to have a pretty solid defense. It would help if you had a guy like Ernest Hausman coming back, but I think they're going to have a decent defense, and I think their offense has enough weapons. I think they win, and I do kind of like the over in this game. All right, we go on to Friday. Miami, Ohio. Miami, Florida. Who's going to win? The Battle of Miami. And pardon me as I fix my hat here. All right. We get to see the first iteration of Tyler Van Dyke merging with Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator, of course, and you have a couple of weapons there on the outside for them. You start with Tyler Harrell, who's coming in from Alabama after being at Louisville. He's got a lot of speed. I heard that, the track speed. He needs to come to fruition for this team. Restrepo needs to be a clear guy for them, and they need to be able to run the ball. They're going to be starting Francis Mauigoa at right tackle, which is a true freshman, so a little bit concerning, but I trust Mario Cristobal when it comes to offensive line play. I also trust that they're going to have a pretty solid defense, but the big thing that I want to highlight here is how is Miami, Ohio going to show up as the underdog? They clearly have a chip on their shoulder after Brett Gabbert is going in the media and talking this smack towards Miami. How does Miami take this seriously? The U, like that's the brand we know. I'm going to give you some ammunition here, Miami. The real Miami is in Florida right now. Hey, how about you knock them off and prove me wrong? I have a hard time seeing them knock them off. I would love to see it. I think Miami, Ohio, the Redhawks are a really good team, but I'm going to take the Hurricanes, the Canes, the U to cover that 16.5 because I think they overwhelm them with the weapons, the defense, and the offensive line. All right, continuing on with Friday, we get the reunited Jeff Brom and Jack Plummer. Now, these two work together, and it was a tough battle with Aiden O'Connell and Jack Plummer. And clearly, if Jack Plummer's wanting to go back to Jeff Brom, there was a lot of respect there when he left. So this is going to be very interesting because you're seeing a new era of Louisville who's probably going to want to pass the ball a little bit more. And they also have some weapons. They have Thrash, they have Thompson, they have Huggins, Bruce. These guys are pretty solid wide receivers on the outside and certainly have a lot of experience with Jordan in the backfield as well. And then on the other side, you have Georgia Tech starting a new era of their own. Now, Brent Key had his games last year, and Georgia Tech looked kind of good under them. Now, they also brought in a crap ton of transfers. I did a Georgia Tech schedule preview, and I talked about their roster. I talked about the guys they brought in the portal. They have a ton. They named Haynes King as their starter. I thought Zach Pyron might have been the starter, but it was really a 50-50 the entire way, and Haynes King is the guy. So I'm wrong about that, just let you know. I do think that Louisville is 100% the better team, but does Georgia Tech keep this game close? I could 100% see it. I don't see an upset. I really like what the offense is going to hypothetically look like under Jeff Brom, going back home to Louisville, where his old stomping grounds is. But Georgia Tech's offense might be able to keep up with the weapons that they brought in. They have quite a bit. I could flip the pages all the way back to read you all the transfers that they have. I mean, they brought in like 4 or 5 wide receiver transfers who are going to make an immediate impact. It'll be very interesting to see how Georgia Tech's offense looks and flows. Louisville should definitely win this game. I would be a little bit surprised, but not overly shocked if Georgia Tech pulls this off. I think Georgia Tech maybe gets better throughout the year. They can push for a bowl game later. I don't think this game is going to be one of those games that they are able to win to get to a bowl game. If I had to pick a cover, which I am not going to tell you to place your money on, but if I had to pick a cover, I'd pick Louisville to cover, but that's certainly no guarantee. And the over, I kind of like the over in this game, 48.5. I do like the over. That might be something I add to the walk that line segment. And then the final game we're going to talk about here, and it's going to be a shortened video, and this is why I split into 2 parts. Is it going to be usual that I split into 2 parts? Maybe not. I might do early games on Saturday, so do the like Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday noon, and then Saturday 3:30, 7:30, and of course Eastern time, all Eastern time there. But we're going to talk about Stanford and Hawaii. You're going to see a lot of passes being thrown again. I kind of like the over in this game, similar to me liking the over in the Louisville and Georgia Tech game. So maybe that'll be a play that, hey, you add in maybe a teaser. Oh, I forgot to change that. I am so sorry. This is not Louisville. This is, by the way, at 11 o'clock. And the other game is at 7:30, not 8. So again, first time I've done a video like this by myself. So I working through the kinks, but that's okay. I make these errors. I'm going to keep a mental note, and I'm going to be able to respond from this. So let me get the numbers for you real quick. Stanford, of course, favored by 3.5 in this game on the road in the Chang Complex. Now, how Hawaii looked against Vanderbilt, it's like you can't really tell because I'm not sure how good Vanderbilt is because they really did not look good. I will say AJ Swan looked really good in the game for Vanderbilt, but so did Braden Shager, pardon me. Shager looked really good in that game. He ended up throwing 2 picks to DeRicky Wright, who ended up saving the day for Vanderbilt in that game, but he threw for 350 yards. He kind of led them towards that comeback in that game, and having a game under your belt where you can gain a little bit of confidence and be like, hey, I can compete compared to a Stanford team who's going with a first-year coach out of Portland State, not playing at this level, even with a Hawaii team that's clearly significantly improved from a year ago. I kind of like Hawaii to win this game. I'm not going to pick it. I'm just going to pick them as a conservative point of view to cover the 3.5 points. And again, I'm trying to see what the over-under is. The over-under, where is it? I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Oh, over-under is 57.5. Even that I kind of like. So with that being said, this is what we're going to talk about here. Walk that line is off to a 1-3 horrible start. Now, there are 2 parts of this, by the way, so I probably won't have the record, though I should be doing the video on Friday, so I guess I'll have all 3 of these games finalized, so I might include it. But I might just do a at the whim ad when it comes to the over for Georgia Tech and Louisville. I might just add that on to because it's going to be extended. There's going to be multiples of these. I'm probably going to do 3 games for these, but then just keep sliding them through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. until we're done. I just play as many lines as I like to play. I don't necessarily limit it to a certain number. Like, all respect to him, by the way. I love Josh Pate, but Josh Pate, his little Ramen Noodle Express is usually supposed to be 6 games a week. I'm not limiting myself. If I don't love a week, I will pick like as little as 5 or 6, but I also might pick like 15 this week or 20. I don't know. It just depends. Like I just like to pick what I like. And at the end of the day, this is what I like for Thursday specifically because Friday didn't necessarily jump out to me at first glance, but I do like that Louisville, Georgia Tech over. UCF over 46.5. I think they probably drop a 50 burger against maybe the worst team in FBS. This is a little bit more of a gamble than the USC over of last week, but that got me the win, and that's what convinced me to be able to that one win in that column, it was USC's over in points. That convinced me to go with UCF over in points because I feel like I was on the right track with that, and I think I'm on the right track with this. Nebraska plus 7.5. Even if they don't win, I bet you this game is within 1 touchdown, and I think getting it at 7.5 is a big deal. If you get it at 7 right now, which is what it is, maybe wait a little bit, see if you can get better, because the difference between 7 and 6.5 is a little bit of a big deal. But even then, if you can get it at 7, and the worst case scenario for you is Minnesota wins by a touchdown and you push, that's not the worst thing in the world. So I'm going to take Nebraska at 7.5. That's what I did take. That's what we have. And then I had an alt parlay, an alt line parlay, which is essentially the same thing as a teaser that some of the lines offer. In fact, FanDuel is offering like, they offer teasers, but they got to be a multi-leg. I have an off-the-record teaser that I am playing for the weekend. NC State minus 8.5 and the over 41.5 in that game. I really, really like NC State's offense to be able to at least drop 30 points in this game. I do think they cover even that 14.5, and that's where that mindset comes from. If they can at least cover and score, if they can at least make it like a 28-13 game, then you're looking at me not, being very close to a cover right there, right? It's just under. That's like borderline right there. If they can at least make it that style of game and make it close, I am happy with it when it comes to the over. And as long as they can control the game the way I think that they could, I think this offense is up for an upgrade with Robert Anae, and that is going to be my take that I'm going to sit on at least for this week, but if not for a little while. So there you have it. UCF over 46.5 at minus 115 is what I had it at. And then you have Nebraska plus 7.5 with minus 110 odds. And then the alt line that is plus 101 odds, because I did kind of let the over be a little bit higher than it maybe should have. 8.5 is the spread, NC State minus 8.5, and then the over 41.5. That is walk that line. That is my predictions for this week. Like I said earlier, comment, like, and subscribe what you think. And I totally forgot to add the ticker, but it's okay. I did that once earlier a couple weeks ago. I'm probably going to forget it again. It's not that big of a deal. If you want me to scroll it while I do this outro, that is fine. I'll do it real quick. So again, guys, I just ask for you to comment at the very least, even if you don't want to like and subscribe, which is just a click of a button. If you got this far in the video, you clearly like the video. So please just like the video. It helps with the algorithm. My last few videos, though some of them hadn't done as well, I've done pretty well considering where I had been at the last month or so. So with that being said, that'll do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Friday or tomorrow. Yeah.